So over the next few weeks during Circuit Breaker, we are going to be releasing a couple of videos which are Q&As with lots of different experts. So we're going to be talking to different professions about how they can help you, what advice they're going to give. We're going to be answering lots of common questions that you may have. So if you have any questions ahead of what we're going to be doing, then please feel free to send them. If you've got someone that you want me to talk to and ask them a specific question, send those in as well, because we're going to be getting lots of very interesting people and answering lots of really cool questions. So today we have got Ellen, who is a lactation consultant who we work very closely with, and she's going to be answering all of our lactation related questions. So Ellen, if you can just tell us about yourself and what you do.
Hi Tash, I'm Ellen. I'm an IBCLC lactation consultant. IBCLC stands for International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. I'm a holistic sleep coach and a Dr. Seuss certified health coach. So usually I combine all these things in my consultations.
So for new parents, what are some signs that they can look out from baby to know that their baby's getting enough milk?
Well, in the first 2 days, it's a bit hard to say if baby is getting enough because baby will pee and poo. And no matter if baby is getting a lot of milk or not, because there's fluid in the baby's body that will be flushed out, and also the meconium. The amount of colostrum is very little, so you will not hear a lot of swallowing compared when the milk comes in. So after 2-3 days when the milk comes in, baby will have more audible swallow, and you will see the chin move with every swallow. There will be a little stop of the chin. That will show you that baby is getting enough milk and drinking well. And also the output, whatever comes in to baby, will come out. So if baby is pooing well and peeing well during the day, you know that baby is getting milk. Also the color will change from like meconium stool into mustardy color seedy stool. That will show you that there is milk and baby is fine.
Been experiencing a couple of mums recently who are getting home from hospital and calling the hospitals at day 2 in the middle of the night and are being suggested to give a bottle of formula to settle their babies. What's your opinion on that?
Well, that's a bit of a hard one. Unfortunately, sometimes practitioners recommend formula bottles when it's not yet necessary, when it would be more helpful to see why baby is crying, or is baby really hungry, or is there a different reason? And if baby is hungry, to suggest first that mother tries to feed her own milk, and suggest ways to hand express or pump to get the milk out of mother and into baby. So that should be always the first intervention, but that takes time, and not everybody knows. I mean, if you're not trained in lactation, and you might not know what to do in that moment. So suggesting a bottle is a quick fix, even though it might have long-term consequences, but that they don't have to deal with. If baby later gets colic or even asthma, allergies or whatnot, the hospital won't have to deal with it. The parents will have. So I think ideally parents should be helped with what they want to do. If it's breastfeeding, then they should get all the help they deserve to make that happen.
And so if there was a mum who was sort of day 2 and she was calling you at 2 a.m. in the morning and her milk hadn't come in yet, what would be your advice for her to do at that time?
It depends, of course, which day it is. Sometimes for some reasons mother's milk comes in a bit later, and then you really have to assess, is a bit of formula necessary at that moment, and if it is, how much, not like a full bottles, but a small amount. Or is there a way that mother can hand express herself, like teach her at the moment, usually and when I can see her, I would show her how to hand express. And if she hasn't been shown in the hospital, I would try to explain to her over the phone or through a video call, or send her videos so she can learn how to do it. Or pump depending on which day it is. So if it's a bit early on day 2, when you pump, there won't be a lot of milk, because most of the time it's just colostrum, which colostrum is amazing, but it's not a large amount, so it will probably stick to the flanges. So hand expressing is more effective. Then do skin to skin with baby as much as possible. It will calm baby down. Baby will be less hot compared to being wrapped in a swaddle in a warm room. When baby is wrapped up, baby will sweat, will lose more fluids and more energy, and will be more hungry. So if you do skin to skin, preferably a mother, when mother needs a break, the partner can do it. It will help calm baby down. Baby is at the source, so baby can latch, and it will help mother produce the hormone she needs to make more milk, to bring the milk in.
Say a mum does decide to give a bottle of formula at that 2 o'clock in the morning on day 2. They've just got home from hospital, no support network around, they can't call anyone. So they give that bottle of formula over doing other techniques like you've suggested. What sort of implications will that have? Like, how can that really affect someone's breastfeeding journey?
The problem is, like I've mentioned before, the top up trap, where, I mean, first of all, it's when you feel you haven't got enough milk and someone tells you give a bottle of formula, you feel like, see, I was right, even though no one has assessed you. So you might have a lot of milk, just baby can't get it out for some reason. So it has to be assessed. It's important. But having been told to give a bottle of formula can for some moms be a reason to be like, oh, well, that's it. I mean, I don't have the milk, it doesn't work. So I've heard from moms who were successful with the second, but not with the first, that they gave up because they thought they didn't have milk. And then they were so surprised with the second that with support, they suddenly could breastfeed and they had a lot of milk. I think we moms have, especially after giving birth, are very sensitive, and you're more sensitive than you otherwise would be. And being told your milk is not enough can be really hard. I mean, I've been through it myself. So, and that is one important point. So that just mentally you feel like you can't do it when you totally could. And the other problem is that the top up trap. When you give baby a bottle, formula is harder to digest. Usually the amount that is on the can is much higher than the baby would drink from the breast at that stage, because it's measured with weight, but breastfeeding is not measured with weight. It's a different biology. So you give a big bottle with a volume that's overstretching the baby's tummy. Baby is sleeping very long, and in that time, baby is not feeding when it otherwise would. Otherwise, baby would stimulate your breast, telling your body to make more milk, and that is missing. So you do that once, that might not be an issue, but then you do it again and again and again, and your milk will go down, and be lesser and lesser, and you will give more and more formula. So that's the problem that often happens.
So does it have an effect on sort of milk supply, or obviously like day 2, your milk's about to come in, and then you give a bottle of formula? Does that does it have implications for then giving breast milk, and how easy is it then to transition off that formula milk into just breast milk again? Because I know that a lot of mums will then struggle because they like the reassurance of seeing the volume of formula, but then they don't realize that actually it's very different to breast milk, and breastfeeding is a very different rhythm. And sort of if they gave that bottle of formula at day 2, what will that look like for the next few days of trying to then transition off if they then wanted to continually breastfeed?
A lot has to do with confidence with breastfeeding as well. I mean, we are being told that the breast milk is not enough, or like baby is not getting enough, and all the time, like, oh, your baby's hungry, your baby's hungry, your milk is too thin. There's so much what moms have to listen to, that there's a lot of doubt. There's always a lot of doubt about one's own breast milk. I went through it myself. I always thought I'm starving my children, because they were premature and quite little, but my third one, luckily it was much better and I was more confident. But with the first, you have no experience, and you probably haven't seen anyone feed when you haven't got a friend who's breastfeeding, and and you want to make sure your baby is all right, and feeding a bottle gives you the reassurance that baby is getting food. If that food is good for them long term, that's a different story, but you won't see that until later. Or it can cause some colic, bottle feeding. It can, and then baby might be crying more, and they might struggle with that, and wondering if your breast milk is causing baby to be colicky, which sometimes can happen with dairy consumption. After the bottle of formula, baby can start reacting to cow's milk protein, but it doesn't matter where this is coming from. It can come through your milk, or it can come from the formula. The protein is there, and it can cause a reaction in the baby. So these are all things that can happen, but usually babies grow out of it, and it is possible to go back to a breastfeeding gut. So the gut will heal once the baby will only get breast milk. It will go back to a breastfed baby gut. The microbiome is improving again, and so it's definitely not too late once you have given a bottle. So, in terms of reassurance, important is to look at the baby. Is baby swallowing? Is baby peeing and pooing? When I'm just feeding. So when baby has been on a bottle for a few consecutive days, it's important to keep stimulating your supply and make sure that your milk is coming in more and more and increasing in quantity, and reducing the formula bit by bit. Because if you have a lowish supply and you stop completely, might be a bit of an issue as well. That's why it's important really to get support. It's possible to increase your supply and reduce the formula, but it's good to have someone with you to guide you through that process. Important is also to remember about formula that it is very filling, and it can make baby sleepier, and it might look to you that baby was really hungry and really needed that feed, when it with breast milk wouldn't have been in such a deep sleep, or not sleeping so long. So it's important to keep in mind that one thing is just a bit more filling, and that being fast asleep for a long time is not the necessarily ideal or a good thing. Of course, sometimes you haven't got a choice. You have to formula feed when you have a low supply, and you should never feel bad about that. Every drop of breast milk counts. But even if you do feed formula, make sure you're not feeding too much amount-wise. That have baby's weight gain checked per week and adjust the amount you're feeding. Because sometimes moms, their breast milk increases and they still give more, like the same amount of formula, when they could really reduce it. So it's important to have support and to figure out how much to give, which quantities, because it is hard to know how much does my baby need. And paced bottle feeding is a good way to so baby can kind of control her hunger, because with a bottle, baby will feed very, very quickly, and it's like us when we see a buffet, we just eat way too much, way too quickly, and then we feel very full. And the same with the bottle. When the baby gets to move very fast, it will fill up maybe more than it would have been with paced bottle feeding or with breastfeeding.
Let's talk about just hand expressing versus pumping. When would you recommend sort of one over the other, or when should you start pumping? When would you hand express?
The first 1-2 days, the amount of colostrum is very little, and if you try to pump and colostrum comes out, it will most probably stick to the flanges, so you won't be able to really feed it to the baby. So it's important to learn how to hand express, suck it in with a syringe, give it to the baby with a syringe. When the amount gets more, when you hand express and you will see it's increasing. You can take a cup, and then if it starts being spraying and really flowing, then it's a good time to use the pump to pump if you have to pump if baby is not drinking effectively. Of course, hand expressing is exhausting. You can use the pump kind of from the beginning to stimulate, just to really have that pumping motion to kind of send a message to the body to make milk if the baby is too sleepy. But don't do it in a way that, don't expect to have milk in there, because it's really just drops. So it can be quite frustrating when you're expecting to get a bottle full of milk if no one tells you that really there are only drops of colostrum in the first 2 days. What's also important is when you're pumping, get help to figure out what's the right flange size. For most women, if you use, for instance, Spectra, the one that's being delivered is, I think, 28 only, or for some brands it's 24, 28. It's too big for many moms. So get some help with the fitting, get some help in terms of the vacuum levels, the massage level. If you're using a level that's too high, you might then end up with pumping trauma, which is very painful. So people will tell you have got thrush. You don't have, because you, even though you don't have thrush, because you have pumped on a too high level. So yeah, pumping is not something that just happens. Same with breastfeeding. We often expect moms to be natural about this and it just happens, but it does not. It's not that natural that it just happens. Often you need a lot of support, say breastfeeding or pumping. Yeah, it's same with the bicycle. You can't just sit and ride. You have to practice, you have to learn. And that's like with everything.
Some hospitals give out things like fenugreek tablets and lots of different types of herbs and things which they recommend for increasing milk supply. What's your views on that?
With herbs, there are often not enough studies to prove that they are effective, but there are so many anecdotal ones from different cultures who use different herbs and have been using them for a long time. So I don't think they would have used them if they didn't have any effect. So I think there are many herbs that can help, and motilium or domperidone, which is the same thing, can be very, very effective if a mother has a low supply. But most important is before starting taking all these drugs and herbs, to make sure that baby is drinking effectively, that pumping is effective. Because if you increase the supply but the milk is not being drained, you will end up having blockages, and again the supply will go down. So both can be important. So herbs can be very supportive, but yeah, it's important to have the right technique and get support.
If a mum's at home at the minute and she feels like baby is constantly feeding, just always on the breast, never really giving her a bit of a break, how do you know when too much is too much? How do you know if a baby is feeding too often and it's, they're not really feeding?
Yeah, that's again the point where it's important to look at the baby. How is baby feeding? Is baby swallowing audibly? Or is baby just suckling and doesn't get any milk? So baby can be, sometimes women are being told 30 minutes left, 30 minutes right. Others say 15 minutes left, 15 minutes right, and no longer. I think you shouldn't focus on the time too much, but make sure baby is drinking effectively, switch back and forth. Babies want flow. They want to drink, they want to flow. If there's not a lot of flow, they will fall asleep, and then baby might be at the breast and not getting much, maybe just drops, not much. And so it's important to watch that watch how your baby is drinking more than the time. If baby is too long at the breast and hasn't got any output, that's when the alarm bells should ring, and where it really you should get support and figure out why and how to improve the situation. If baby is drinking a lot, some babies like to hang out at the breast. Just some had a traumatic birth. They just want to be with you. It helps them. Some are a bit colicky, and they feel less pain when they are at the breast, when they are suckling. When they feed a lot, and when their output is good, and when there's a lot of pee and a lot of poo, and baby is growing very well, and they are constantly at the breast, you don't have to be concerned that baby is not getting enough. Then just give baby to dad to get a break. Dad can sit skin to skin. There are methods to soothe the baby. Go buy yourself a gym ball and bounce on the ball, and there are many ways to calm a baby. Swaddle when baby's not as crying and hard to settle. So it's always important to make sure baby is drinking and gaining. Drinking in terms of swallowing and really getting milk, and then it's up to the comfort level of every mom how long she can have baby hang out there. Not every baby will unlatch when it's full. Some babies they drink 10 minutes and they're full and then they unlatch, but others they just never unlatch because they love it so much, or they are in pain and it just helps them to be on the breast the whole time. So it's important to look at the individual situation and assess why is going on, what's going on.
If anybody needs some lactation help, obviously we refer on to you from our beloved Bumps ladies, but if someone is watching this and they needed some assistance, how would they get in contact with you?
They can book me through my website, ellen-nipperly.com. Maybe you can share with everyone, and you can WhatsApp me, you can book me through my booking system, like you can WhatsApp me first and ask about timing or etc. Yeah, I'm on Instagram as well. Not too active, but you can find me there, and you can find me on Facebook as well.
All right, so thank you so much, Ellen, for your time today and for answering all of our questions. And then, yeah, anyone who needs to get in touch with Ellen, please do. We'll put her details on all of the posts as well so that you can go through directly to her links.
Well, thanks for having me, and take care. Bye.